Hey, it's Sarah Burke here from the Women in Media podcast. And before we get started on a new episode, could I get you to hit like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell, whichever app you do your podcast listening in. Make sure you're all set up so you know when there's a new episode and you can help spread the word. Oh, and if you're so inclined, could I ask you to leave a review if the app that you're using does that? You're the best. All right, let's get to the show. I'm Sarah Burke, and this is the Women in Media podcast. My guest today is a woman in the media, sort of by proxy.
Oh, I feel so bad saying it now, but whatever. It's part of the journey. So Nickelback was touring a lot at the time, and Dallas's band was playing with them a lot. So it was like this constant rotation of every time I turned on the radio, their songs would be on, and I'm like, oh my God, like, stop playing these guys. There was one point I actually called in to the radio station and offered my entire paycheck to stop playing default songs. Careful what you put your energy into, because I put a lot of energy into hating a band and I ended up marrying the lead singer, so.
She's currently a cosmetic tattoo artist at Poke and Stroke in South Surrey, but you may know her best as the wife of country superstar Dallas Smith. My guest today is Kristen Smith. Welcome to the Women in Media podcast. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good. So I think we kind of go back to the beginning to start this episode off. Did you meet Dallas when he was on stage, before he was famous, as he was getting famous? What's the story there?
So this is kind of a long story. I will try to make it short. So when I was 18 years old, I worked in the bars in Edmonton. I was one of those girls that sold cigarettes. So I would walk around selling cigarettes at bars, and one of our first shows that we did, it was all rock shows. The first one was Nickelback, and Default was opening. So I was 18, I'm 38 now, so that's 20 years ago. And they were like, okay, we have to go in and meet the bands or whatever. I'm like, hated Nickelback at the time, hated Default, maybe still kind of do, but anyways, walked into this room and there's Chad and Dallas, and I'm like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. I hate your band, but whatever. And carried on, went to another couple of shows where they were playing, and it was kind of like we recognized each other and be like, oh, hey, how's it going? There was one, Dallas played the Halloween Howler in Edmonton, which is just this absolute drunk fest. And I was dressed as a nurse in this latex outfit, as you do. And I ended up needing cell phone reception. I was trying to talk to my mom on the phone and wandered backstage and into Default's dressing room. And I was like, okay, I can hear you. And then I looked around, realized where I was kind of thing. And Dallas is standing there. And I was like, I'm just going to grab a beer. Went over to the fridge, grabbed a beer. We really didn't know each other at all, but it was like, oh, you're that guy, you're that girl. Fast forward to me living in Australia, and I think I was 20 at the time, and Default happened to be touring there, and I remember driving down the streets in Australia and hearing Default on the radio and being like, oh my God, this band is following me everywhere. This is I hate their music. Oh, I feel so bad saying it now, but whatever. It's part of the journey. So yeah. Fast forward again to a Coors Light show in Banff, and Default was playing. I was handing out beer to people, and their sound cut out, Default sound completely cut out. The music cut out. And there's me in the crowd cheering because I was so pumped that I didn't have to then listen to them. Walked up on the stage, took the mic from Dallas and was like, continued on giving out free beer. Fast forward again to me moving to Vancouver from Edmonton 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, oh my goodness. And I had someone who wanted to manage me for singing, who sent me to Dallas for further vocal lessons. And I remember showing up on his doorstep and being like, you're that guy. And he's like, you're that girl. And he was with someone at the time, so nothing happened then. But I was like, you're kind of cute. Left it at that. And 6 months later, his relationship had ended, and we met up with mutual friends in the band State of Shock. and went out one night. Everyone hung out, and we just started texting the next day about how much we hated cats. And here we are.
That's not where I thought this would start.
It's like the
cats.
That's how it went. It's like it's the longest journey, but it's funny, like just how I'm like, careful what you put your energy into, because I put a lot of energy into hating a band and I ended up marrying the lead singer. So
very full circle, and like hearing that story now, it's like it was destined to happen. Like you couldn't get rid of him.
Apparently.
So.
Yeah.
So funny. So, I mean, at the time, the hatred for the band, do you think it had something to do with ego? Like, what was it?
It was the radio stations playing them way too much. So I do blame the radio stations a lot. Nickelback was touring a lot at the time, and Dallas's band was playing with them a lot. So it was like this constant rotation of every time I turned on the radio, their songs would be on, and I'm like, oh my God, like, stop playing these guys. There was one point I actually called in to the radio station and offered my entire paycheck to stop playing default songs. So
you're part of the early wave of Nickelback haters, which is also a claim to fame.
Yes.
It's funny.
I also have like that one file on the computer that's like all Nickelback songs that I will wholeheartedly rock out to in my own in my own time.
I think I was part of the early wave too, but then you see them live for like a stadium show and you're just like, oh, I get it now. Like, that's
we saw them in Vegas, like down the road, and it was like, holy crap! Like, dude can sing fine.
So it sounds like, I mean, you got in a relationship with Dallas at a time where his career was like peaking, huge. Did you have any reservations about getting into a relationship with a guy who's on the road all the time and all the things that come with that type of career?
So when we started dating, Default was not coming to an end, but things were slowing down, and he was in the position to be like making the decision what he wanted to do. This is when he was talking to Joey Moy about potentially doing a country album. So the first trip he took while we were kind of starting to date, he went down to Nashville, and I think he recorded Somebody Somewhere, like the first song, just to see how it would go. And in that time, I think he went to a party at like Kid Rock's house. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, whoa, I can only imagine what that would have looked like and been like. So it was, I will say, for the first probably year of dating him, like it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
Like it is. Dating anyone in the music industry, especially the lead singer of a rock band and now a solo artist, it was tough. Like, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I had some crazy moments, like, sitting in a bathtub, drinking a bottle of wine and sobbing to myself. It's fine. As you do.
When I like first reached out to you to see if you would want to come on this podcast, like I thought the angle would be so interesting because the spotlight that I knew of you, like I didn't even know that you had a singing career before this, but I thought to myself, like, did she ask for the spotlight, or is it like a default of the type of life that you live with Dallas?
Yeah, it was almost it was too much of there can't really be two of us. I just kind of made the choice. Like, there's a lot of things that I did. I was a musical theater kid, so there was acting too.
Oh, yeah.
I actually ended up taking the acting direction more so. I took acting classes in Vancouver. I had an agent. I was doing quite a few auditions and stuff, but then we had Veda, and that's honestly when things really kind of calmed down for me, and mostly because Dallas's career just like shit hit the fan, and he did so well so quickly, so it was more of, okay, I'm gonna kind of hold down the fort and support you, and this is just the direction that we're gonna take. And it's worked
Yeah.
out great. It's kind of funny now. Veda, she's got the karaoke machine hooked up in the hallway, and like I just posted a video yesterday of her just going hard, blasting out some Alicia Keys. This girl is on fire. I'm like, what is like? It's just so full circle. I'm like, I'm watching myself as a child. So if anything, she'll take over the music thing and run with it. She's an incredible singer. I'm like, oh my God, here we
How
go.
old is she now?
She's 8.
She has her front teeth now. The last time that I was on, like, a recording with Dallas, he was like, she looks like such a hick. She just lost her front teeth.
I know. They were gone for so long too. I'm like, please come back. She looks so funny. But yeah, now
awesome.
she's like this tiny, sassy little adult who's got like her own full personality. She's so theatrical and like dramatic, but in a good way. Like she's just this tiny little actor and singing all the time. She's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like a mini you for sure. Did you find it hard to like make that decision and step out of the spotlight?
Um, with I find more so with the acting. I don't know if I was good enough to really do something with it and have anything really take off. But it was more so the acting that I've really missed. If anything, I would like to go back and take classes again and maybe see what happens with, when Evan might be a little bit older. We'll just see. But I think that was more where my passion was. So I was definitely the theater kid growing up. I've danced, I did ballet, tap, jazz, like all of them.
Oh, that's my childhood for sure. Yeah.
Yay! Yeah, it's the best. So yeah, that's kind of I took all the different paths.
So what's the best and worst part of being with someone who is so iconic in the Canadian music industry with not one but 2 careers now?
The best part, it's really nice to be so proud of someone. Like he has done so well, and I feel this sense of pride. I remember this one thing that he said when kind of Default was slowing down and the country career was picking up and all the radio stations were adding the song, and how humble and how almost surprised he was. But he said, he's like, you see the same people on the way down that you do when you're on your way up. And I think it's been really cool to watch kind of him going from the ground up, but seeing how many people support him and love him, and the relationships that he's made in the past and how they really fostered where he is now. Like the community has been wonderful. Like they feel so much like our family. Like going to the CCMAs in Calgary in a month from now, and it's just this happy reunion of celebrating all these people. So it's such a positive place for him and for us, and yeah, the community of even his fans following me. And I don't have a huge social media following, and I don't think I ever intend to be an influencer by any means, but so much support has come our way and so much positivity has come our way. So I'm just grateful for all of that. So
Charlotte from Red Umbrella, like very early on in the country game, because I sort of started my career in the rock side of radio, and country was brand new. It's like, it's 2017, and it's like, okay, I got to figure this new scene out here. And that was one of the craziest things to me when I first met Dallas, and you were backstage. I remember it was, I want to say CCMAs in Hamilton, I think.
Oh, yes.
And we were doing like a big broadcast, and Dallas was coming to perform, and might have been my second year at Sirius. It's a little later. Anyway, it's all very blurry now. But, meeting Dallas for the first time, being like, wow, he's so big and he acts like a normal dude, right? Like that's one of the best parts about him.
Yeah.
And you too, actually. You were just like someone great to talk to backstage. And that's literally what I remember of that night. And that's when I started following you on social media. It seems like very natural that people would want to follow along your journey with Dallas, Yeah,
I appreciate that. It's funny because he, in the beginning of the country days, I remember the very first CCMAs we went to, and I'm like, this is so fun. I'm going to get dressed up and hair and makeup and all the things. And we walked into a room, and people initially thought that I was the artist. because Dallas was so like kind of reserved and quiet, and I think he almost came off like as an asshole because he was like so quiet and reserved and humble too. Thankfully, which hasn't changed. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was interesting back in the day.
The humble and the pride is the best part. What's the worst part?
Um, ooh, him being away is obviously tough. But I mean, we got used to that over the first many years of our relationship until the pandemic, when all of a sudden it was just him home all the time. Um, but it's been an adjustment. Like, it was awful for my anxiety at first. I went through the jealous phases and just feeling bad about myself in certain ways, comparing myself to other people. Like, parts of that are really difficult when you see, um, at a festival and these girls are walking around and they're in their early 20s and I've had two kids and I don't look the same. Like, I've always struggled with that, and I've talked a bit about that too, kind of over the last couple of years or so. It's not the worst part, but it's really made me have to focus on myself and figure out where I stand in all of it, and it's forced me to face those things, I guess, talk about those things, and
That's kind of like a
yeah,
silver lining in a way, because yeah, I mean, working in radio, you feel that all the time too. I totally hear what you're saying there.
yeah.
What made you want to like start sharing about those feelings? Because I remember on social media when you started sharing about mental health, like there must have been a
Mhm.
moment or a something that switched.
Um, I just have never really felt a need to hide that. I'm definitely an oversharer. I always have been. So when I've had, a bad day, or if I'm having a down day or feeling a certain way about myself, um, I have always felt the need to share it. Um, and I've never really felt a shame in that. And especially about like body image and that sort of thing, that kind of, I was just having a rough day one day, and I think I posted an older photo of myself, um, and I got so much attention and so much feedback on one post about my feelings about my body and how it's changed. And I was not expecting that. Um, it was almost just like it was a lot to take on. I remember reading all these comments from these women feeling the same way and having no idea, a lot of them that I knew. And it's like, you feel bad about yourself? Like, look at you. All these other people like feel the same way as me. So um, I've never been that person to feel like I need to hide any of that. I don't get what the point is. I don't know. And some people do, and that's fine. Some people are really private about their feelings, and if they're maybe taking a medication for anxiety, or they're feeling bad about themselves or their physical appearance or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe it's like a blessing and a curse, the whole oversharing thing, but I've always had positive feedback from it, and people have said like I'm helping someone to maybe talk about it more. So why the heck not? If I feel no
Yeah.
shame, I'll put it out there,
Yeah.
and hopefully, you know, it helps someone to maybe talk about it. So
Yeah, well, to see the wife of like one of Canada's most recognizable stars talking about mental health openly, what a beautiful thing, right?
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
mental
that's
health
it.
is a huge thing in our house too, right? Like, Veda struggles with it, our daughter struggles with it, Dallas does, I do. So we've had no choice but to really make it an open conversation in our house. So why not put it out there as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the kids, how do you talk about like the spotlight and fame? Because that's got to be an interesting thing in the house too.
Yeah.
Veda went on tour at the beginning of this tour, didn't she? I saw.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, especially with where her age is now, because we started to notice people recognizing her when we were out before they would recognize Dallas or myself. And it doesn't happen often. But when it did, it was kind of like, ooh, like maybe we tone this down a little bit, and maybe I started asking her permission. Do you want to be posted on social media? And if I took a video or a photo or whatever, I'd ask her first. And most of the time she doesn't mind. Again, she is out there and kind of does her own thing. And I just trust that if she one day decides she doesn't want to be seen in that way, then fine. As far as talking to her about the fame thing, it's kind of funny. Like, I've heard her in certain situations where she's met other kids and she's like, oh, my dad's famous. And I'm like, oh my God, Bea, don't say that.
No, but that'll open you up to have a conversation for sure.
Yes, yeah, totally. And yeah, I don't know if she so much notices it. We have noticed, so Dallas has a son who's now 17, who we've really kept off of our socials and stuff, just out of respect for him and his mom. He walked into a classroom, I think in his last couple years of high school here, and one of the teachers had a photo of Dallas on her wall. So that was kind of interesting. So
did he bring that up with you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, it was kind of weird. And she didn't know, and eventually was like, I'm going to take this down off the wall. And that was it. But I think with the whole fame thing, I honestly feel like it's a perception. And I feel like we've never in our house and when we're out given off the perception that we are in any way different than anyone else. We don't, if people are looking at us or anything like that, we don't notice it. Someone else would point it out to us, or Veda, I remember her being like, Mom, that girl over there is trying to take pictures of us. I'm like, what? Okay. So we've never been those people. Like I look at other artists and stuff, and their wives and families, and when they're at shows, they have security walk them out into the crowd. Like, that's never been us. We've never been those people that have ever really thought of it. So that would be very strange if our kids were starting to feel any sort of that. I would hate that.
When Veda was on the tour, and like I saw her hanging out with like Meg and Kelly and just having the time of her life,
living the dream.
Yeah. What are some of the things that she was saying to you, like, Mom, like about her experience with that whole thing? Because you weren't on that part of the tour, were you? And you met them or something?
I met up with them. So Veda, oh my God. So Everin, the first couple weeks that we were at home without Dallas, Everin was sick. So all of my attention was going to Everin. So when Veda got to go out and, go off with Dallas for a couple days and get all of that attention, like, girl was thriving. It was so funny. So she makes these rainbow loom bracelets and stuff. So her and JoJo Mason made this business together where they were selling these rainbow loom bracelets to all of the artists, but they're $1 each. We only take cash and we don't have change. So my child, she was there, 2-3 days or something, came home and she had like $140 cash. I'm like, where did you get this money? She's like, Mom, I have a business now. JoJo Mason and I are business partners. I'm like, oh my God. I'm so sorry, everyone. She took all your money. Like, oh, but they loved it. They had so much fun with her. But I'm like, you child are, she is a force. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
What's something that you think she picked up from JoJo or Kelly or Meg? Like, just something that she absorbed.
Something that she absorbed. I don't know. Let me think. I hope if anything, like she's a kid who has some self-esteem issues. So I think
I
just
definitely did at that age.
yeah, like she struggled a lot. She's had some bullying issues at school and that sort of thing. So I think just having the one-on-one time and having these older people that she sees and hears on the radio and stuff tell her how fun and cool she is, like I hope that's what she took home from that whole experience. Like, yeah, it's cool to get, to go out and see dad and stuff, but it's almost like he wasn't even the focal point when she was there. It was,
Yeah.
I'm going to go color with Kelly, or like, I'm going to go chat with Megan for a bit. I think she's just doing her makeup. I'm like, okay, like, just this tiny adult. She's funny. She's hilarious.
That is so cute.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt unsafe? Like you were talking about how you don't feel like you need security and all of that, but I'm sure there's been some moments over the span of this that you have felt unsafe.
Yes. I remember one show in Calgary where I was in the crowd with Veda and I was holding her. She would have been maybe 5, so not too small, but I was holding her. We were watching the show and it started to get pretty crowded, so I turned around to walk out of it, and this lady, she was an older lady, maybe in her 50s, and she looked at Veda and she was like, oh, you're Veda! And she grabbed Veda out of my arms
Oh my
and
God.
started hugging her, and I was like, oh, and she was just shit-faced. So she's like wobbling, and I'm like, it was so fast that I just didn't like, it was so strange and surreal. And the woman's friend was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And she wouldn't let her go. I had to like peel my child off of this woman who is hysterically crying. It's like she'd met Jesus or something. And she's hugging my kid and Veda's looking at me like, what's going on? So
Oh my gosh.
that was interesting. But that was
Few and far between.
yes, few and far between. Like, mostly when people see us, if I'm with Veda or whatever, they're like, oh my God, hi. And they just say hi, which is great.
That's cool. So whether it's like radio people, right? You interact with a lot of radio people, other musicians. I'm sure that there's some like camaraderie between you and these industry people.
Oh, totally.
And I'm sure that there's also, some things that you want to stay very far away from. Talk to me about the behind the scenes camaraderie and what you don't want to be around, who you want to surround yourself with.
Yeah, we really have a good kind of close network of people who we're drawn to, and the people you see after so long and you run up to them and give them a big hug and they literally feel like family. I will say, like, there really hasn't been too much or too many negative experiences, or really a lot that we've wanted to kind of stay back from. I think the main thing with Dallas is he's so incredibly humble, and that has always really brought the right people our way.
Yeah.
He knows not to surround himself with the yes people who are gonna tell him whatever it is that he's doing is the best thing on earth and the sun shines out his ass. It's not what he's wanted for himself, not what I've wanted for us. So yeah, I can say that we're really lucky that we haven't had that experience. Kind of funny, when it was our first CCMAs, and we were backstage at one of the late night shows or whatever, and a bunch of bands were playing, and I happened to be in a circle talking with Johnny Reed and his wife Jen, and Johnny went and did something. Jen was still standing there, and just me knowing, like, no one knew who we were, and I just kind of said to her, I'm like, how do you find all of this? Like, how do you deal with all of this, and your husband being pulled in all these directions, and you kind of have to stand back, like, where do you fall in all this? How do you do all of this? And she gave me some really incredible advice, like just kind of woman to woman. And that was really my first kind of taste of like talking to someone who I was going to be in their shoes one day. I had no idea where this was going to go, but that was such a kind conversation, and almost like my intro to what this was all going to look like one day. So I'm forever grateful to her for that. And yeah, it wasn't a lot of like, stay away from this person or watch out for this. It was just like, you're going to surround yourself with good people. That's all you have to do. And that's really what we've done and been lucky to have done. Yeah.
So I'm thinking back to a Dallas Smith show where he had you on stage. I think it was at Budweiser stage in Toronto. It maybe caught you off guard that he pulled you on stage.
There's been a couple of those. I'm caught off guard every time he's pulled me on stage.
But one thing that I always notice about, I guess, your group, your music community, is that everyone loves you guys, right? Like in that band, for instance, like it wasn't just Dallas being like, here's my amazing wife. Like it was like the whole band was pumped you were there and like pumped you were on stage. I remember watching the reaction to like everyone on stage because he's got a pretty big production now.
Yes. Yeah.
What about how, you know, the band itself, the camaraderie of the band itself, how they treat you and how they treat the family?
Oh, it's so funny when you were saying that, it almost like made me emotional because he's been so lucky with all of the guys in his band, and they're
so wonderful.
They're so wonderful, and those are some of Dallas's best friends. I feel like if ever I needed to talk to any of them about, you know, something deeply personal, or if I was ever concerned about anything or whatever, those would be the direct people I would go to because they are his best friends and who he's closest with, and they're family people. And you know, they've seen the behind the scenes. Like, of course, there's been times when, you know, Dallas and I were arguing on the phone and he's away and they're overhearing this and looking at him like, what the hell is going on? But like, I even talked to another band wife about this yesterday. Like, she realized she like got mad at her husband and hung up the phone, and he was with a whole other band that she's like, I don't even think they know who I am. Like, this is going to look so bad. I'm like, guaranteed they have wives or girlfriends who are at home and they're dealing with this stuff when shit hits a fan too. So, he's really lucky, and I feel really lucky. They're all awesome. Like, they're such awesome guys. So, and they're great with our kids too. So that's, it's huge.
From like a privileged space, sometimes you guys get to do really cool things. Like, I know he's always at the Canucks games, and he's always got the, you know, he can kind of roll wherever he wants to these days. What about like finding women in those other circles?
Yeah.
Did you bond with a hockey wife?
Yes. It's so funny. So, okay, so in the room that we're in right now, this is the kind of makeshift studio that Dallas had to throw together throughout the pandemic. And on the walls, I don't know if you can
Bo
see.
Horvat, I saw the jersey behind you.
We've got jerseys, and I even took a couple down because he had a Calgary Flames one, and I'm like, he would really not appreciate if that was on the wall behind me as I'm talking to you. But yes, so Bo Horvat in the background there. So his wife, Holly, has been our like sleep trainer for Everin.
Oh my gosh.
She's an incredible nurse and has helped me like walk through that because Everin didn't sleep for like the first entire year of her life. So it's kind of funny how like you just reach out to these people and you just have this weird thing in common. But she's been incredible. So yeah.
I noticed the Bo Horvat because he used to play for the London Knights, and I used to do some in-game hosting for the London Knights.
Oh, cool. Yeah. They're awesome people. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny. Mm-hmm. I might even go as far to say like your new career, which like we should definitely touch on. Yes. Was that born out of the pandemic and you wanting to do something else with your time?
Yeah, that was, so I'm a permanent makeup artist and I do brow microblading, and I'm also trained in scalp micropigmentation. So, I went for a brow touch-up with the girl who did mine and ended up training me. And it was something that I always thought was the coolest thing. Like, I didn't know how it was done. I didn't know, I'm like, where do you train for something like this? Like I had asked Shay years ago when she did my eyebrows for the first time, like, how do you get into something like this? This is so cool. Because it's like it's another form of tattooing, and I can't draw a stick man worth my life, but I can do tremendous eyebrows.
You're certainly not afraid of the needle too. Show off a
Yes,
little
exactly.
bit of your ink.
Not at all. Not at all. So, so yeah, I looked into training, and Shay offered one-on-one training. So, yeah, I trained in that and scalp micropigmentation with her husband Shannon at Ink Barber, and I love it. I love it. It's this really cool time to get to like sit and chat with my clients, and it's awesome. It's like a therapy session while I'm making incredible brows for their face. So yeah, I love it. I love it.
With the scalp stuff too, I was sort of thinking about how that's kind of almost full circle too, because that's a confidence piece for a lot of people.
Yes. And what I didn't know when I started the training was that 50% or more of the clientele are actually women. So women wanting density in the scalp, and it is such a unique and cool tool and thing to have, like, and to be able to do. It's really awesome. There's a couple different things too that I want to train in eventually. One is scar revision, and
cool.
working on stretch marks as well, just to produce more collagen in them and kind of lessen the appearance of them. So there's all these just neat things that are coming up that we can do. So I'm like, it's fun. I love it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So coming to the end of our recording here, a couple of things. I want to know the best concert you've ever seen. You do not need to answer with Dallas being the person on stage, but maybe there is a show that you're like, this was so incredible that I was in tears and I have to share it. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see. Best concert. Oh, we just saw Alanis, which, oh God.
I have such FOMO. I didn't go. And I wish I did. Yeah.
It was a full-blown religious experience. That woman is Jesus Christ. And her vocals were spot on. She was so good. And she showed a bunch of videos at the very beginning of the show where just different parts of her life and different shows she'd been on, and you know, her family and everything. And it was like, it was so cool. She was my very first concert ever. And then Dallas and I just went a couple weeks ago. So that was pretty incredible.
What gives you the goosebump effect when you're at a live show? At
a live show, I am very much like, I want to hear like crisp, amazing vocals. So again, Alanis was absolutely stunning, but I'm finding more like Dallas's last show in Toronto. So him and Mackenzie Porter, they sang their song in the sound check, and I cried. It was like
during sound check.
Their vocals, the song, like, I don't think Dallas understands how good of a singer he is. I don't think he'll ever understand how good he is. And it's been this really cool transition watching him from the very, very first show when he did, he was in a bar doing an album release for Dallas Smith. And I remember he had the mic in the stand, and one of the guys, it might have been Joey Moy, who walked up on stage and took the mic stand off the stage, because it was this thing that he hid behind and wouldn't take the mic off and go run around. He would literally take the mic stand with him, and it was this thing. And they took that away, and he had to kind of go out and interact with the crowd. And from seeing that to where he is now, I don't think there's a show of his where I haven't had tears in my eyes by the end of it, because it's just like this whole other person on stage, and his band, and, you know, all the incredible artists that he's gotten to collab with. And mind-blowing. Very proud of him. Very, very proud.
before I ask you who you want to nominate to come on this podcast, I wasn't sure how it would go when I reached out to you, because I almost had an assumption in my brain that you might get sick of being Dallas Smith's wife. Does that feeling ever come up, just where like sometimes you'd like for someone to ask you about what you're working on and things like that? I got to ask that question.
Yeah. The one thing that always kind of irks me a little bit is when it's like, yeah, this is Dallas Smith and this is Dallas Smith's wife. It's like I don't get a name sometimes. That's all I am, just wife and mom. But yeah, it's just a weird thing.
And with your new, your new, I guess, tattooing career and like this like cosmetic stuff you're working on, I sort of saw you take something back for yourself recently, just from the social media perspective. And I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so I told you to come up with a couple names of women that you would love to hear speak on this podcast. Who'd you come up with?
I am in love with Jessie Cruikshank.
Okay.
I love Jessie Cruikshank. Just as a mom, she is hilarious, and I love that she talks a lot about the behind the scenes part of being a mom. She's walking around and she's got her breast pumps on and or she'll post like she's crying and upset because it's hard. She's working so hard and has her kids back home or on tour with her, and I love her to bits and pieces. She's a favorite of mine.
Did you come up with anyone else?
Oh, well, two of my favorites, who would be awesome, would be Charlotte and Shelby as a team.
We should get them on together.
They're two of the funnest, like, most incredible women ever, hands down. They're, my favorite people, so.
They're going to hate it, but it'll be fun.
That's fine. I'm going to love it, so.
And anyone in music?
So, I would definitely say Mackenzie Porter. She is the queen of all of the she does everything. She does everything. She's an actor, she's a singer, she's so good, and she's a good human. Human. Yeah, I really love her.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for this. I just thought you'd bring such an interesting perspective to, well, the music industry, but also like what it's like to, date someone, come up with someone, marry someone who's got a career like Dallas. So thanks so much for sharing all of that.
Thank you for having me. I feel very honored to be here. So thank you.
I've got all of Kristen's info in the episode notes if you're looking to get in touch. She works at Poke and Stroke. The website is pokeandstroke.ca. And her Instagram for all those bookings at Shooter McGav Inc. Clever Inc. at the end. And a heads up for next episode. 2 weeks from now, my guest is Aaron Davis, a prominent voice in broadcasting over the last how many decades? Can't wait for you to hear that conversation. Until then, thanks for listening.
What happens when we play outside? We become healthier, both mentally and physically. We become more creative and more focused. We connect with nature, each other, and ourselves. Let's Take This Outside, a new podcast hosted by me, Marianne Iveson, an aspiring outdoor athlete and nature lover. I speak to athletes, outdoor professionals, and scientists about their connection to nature, how it affects their performance, and everyday life. Let's Take This Outside, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, and at letstakethisoutside.ca.
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.